There was a time in War Thunder when a single tank could change the way entire matches played out. You didn't need to be a master of mechanics or a demon at angling. You just needed one vehicle, park it in the right spot, and watch the scoreboard tilt. That tank was the IS-6. It arrived like a wrecking ball, it ate shells that should have killed it, and players queued like it was the holy grail of premiums. Then something changed. Gaijin adjusted brackets, new vehicles arrived, and the IS-6 went from uncontested monster to a tank most players dust off for nostalgia. This is the story of how everyone played the IS-6 and why most people stopped. When the IS-6 was first introduced, it sat at 7.0, and at that time, that BR was practically its playground. The matchmaker it faced back then meant it mostly went up against Tiger 2s, Pershings, and a handful of post-war heavies. And against those, the IS-6 was a monster. Its armor design was the first clue. That slope combined with the rounded turret made it ridiculously hard to penetrate unless you knew the exact weak spots, which, let's be real, most players at that time didn't. The front plate would bounce shot after shot, and even when enemies flanked it, the side armor could still troll AP rounds. Add to that its surprisingly good mobility for a heavy, and you had a tank that could lead the push and retreat fast enough to stay alive. Then there was the gun, the 122mm. It had access to both APHE and APCVC shells. Back then, the IS-6 was a tank you could rely on for everything. Kitty brawls? No problem. Medium range engagements? Still fine. You could even take a few long shots and walk away with lucky kills thanks to the solid penetration and shell velocity. But more than its stats, what really made the IS-6 feared was its timing. It came out during a period when most 7.0 opponents posed for medium tanks were only starting to appear. That meant the IS-6 had every advantage: protection, firepower, and mobility without facing the advanced ammo or tech that could encounter it. If you were a new player with some money to spend, this thing felt like a cheat code. You could spawn in and suddenly you're bouncing shots from every direction. Even veteran players who knew its weak spots had to work to bring it down. It was, simply put, the definition of pay to win. But War Thunder doesn't stay still. As more tanks got added, balance shifted, and the IS-6, once the king of 7.0, started to feel the heat. First came the BR adjustments. The IS-6 was raised from 7.0 to 7.3 and eventually 7.7. That doesn't sound like much, but in War Thunder, each 0.3 increase is like moving to a completely different era of tank design. At 7.3, it could still hold its own. It wasn't as dominant as before, but it was still competitive. It still had that punch. It just needed a little more finesse to use effectively. The only real issue at that point was that getting up there to 7.7 started to hurt. Then, Gaijin finally moved it to 7.7, and that's where everything collapsed. At 7.7, you start facing a much bigger enemies. Mono 3s, Conquerors, and more. You start facing a much more newer tanks, and some vehicles equipped with early ATGMs had advanced ammo, better gun handling, and in some cases tabs. That meant they could shoot first, shoot faster, and actually penetrate you. Suddenly, the IS-6 wasn't bouncing everything anymore. It was getting penned frontally by tanks that were lighter, faster, and more accurate. But that wasn't all. Gaijin also made subtle model adjustments over the years. The turret cheeks, once known for shrugging off shells, were remodeled and slightly weakened. And its reload speed was also nerfed, which made trading shots a losing game. The tank that used to win brawls by brute force now had to pick its fights carefully. That's when players started realizing the ugly truth. The IS-6 wasn't overpowered anymore, it was outdated. Once you're at 7.7, the meta shifts dramatically. Tanks like the M60, Centurion Mark 10s, and some ATGM carriers start showing up. They can fire accurately on the move, reload faster, and penetrate your armor with ease. The IS-6 on the other hand, still stuck with a slow reload, mediocre gun handling, and armor that doesn't mean much against chemical or high velocity rounds. Let's put it this way, at 7.0, you were OP as hell. At 7.7, you're just another heavy tank and not even the best one. You can still get kills, but every kill feels like you had to fight twice as hard for it. And while the gun can still one-shot anything you pen, that reload time means every miss, every bounce, every poorly angled shot is a death sentence. Its armor still trolls some players who shoot without thinking, but most experienced ones know exactly where to aim. the turret cheeks, the lower front plate, and when they do, the IS-6 goes down fast. Here's the thing, the IS-6 didn't suddenly get worse overnight. It's not like Gaiun just flipped a switch and killed it. What happened was gradual, a slow decline that mirrors how War Thunder itself evolved. When new tanks entered the game, brought new technology with them, faster reloads, better optics, and more advanced ammunition, and every time that happened, IS-6 advantages shrank a little more. That's power creep at its finest. The IS-6 didn't change much, but everything around it did. It's a classic War Thunder story. What used to be a king becomes a casualty of progress. And the worst part is, it's still a fun tank to drive, it's just not special anymore. You can still have great games in it. You can still bounce shots, get monster kills, and feel that same old satisfaction from a perfect angle or a devastating AP round. But it takes a lot more effort now. You can't brute force your way through matches like before. You have to think, adapt, and play smart. The IS-6 went from being overpowered to overlooked, and that's what makes its story kind of poetic. The once feared premium that ruled the battlefield is now just another vehicle collecting dust in hangars. So after everything, is the IS-6 still worth playing? Honestly, yeah, kinda. It's still got that old school heavy tank charm. The armor, while not impenetrable anymore, can still save you if you play smart. The gun, even with the slow reload, still hits like a freight train. And the mobility, for a heavy, it's still impressive, especially if you get down tiers. But the days of the IS-6 being the pay-to-win beast are long gone. Now it's more of a nostalgic pick. Something you take out for a few rounds to relive the good old days. If I had to rate it today, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. Mainly because I think 7.7 is just the right BR for it, just like with the mouse. It's the kind of tank that reminds you of War Thunder used to be before stabs and HitFS dominated the game. It's not overpowered anymore, but it's still a tank that demands respect, and if you play it right, it still can make your enemies rage just like the old days. If you like this video, hit that like and sub button, and as always, see you in the next one.